I hate you. Those were the words Sarah spoke to her husband 3 months ago before storming out the door. Now they're back together, dancing in the kitchen, laughing and giggling like teenagers, and having the time of their life in their relationship. Hi, my name's Adaeze Chiwako. I'm a marriage and relationship coach, and I've spent the last decade helping couples step from the brink of divorce and find new love again and create the marriage they've always desired, even when they thought it was impossible. Now, if you're watching this, you might be in the same place that Sarah was in a few months ago, where the connection in your marriage just feels so torn apart. It's almost like you're living with a stranger. You guys don't know how to talk to each other again. The atmosphere is tense and heavy, and every conversation turns into a conflict, and you just don't know who you are anymore. But here's where most marriage advice gets it wrong. Rock bottom isn't the end of your story. It's only the beginning. And if you've hit that rock bottom, the good news is that there's only one way, and that's up. Now, before we dive in, I want you to know something. Hitting rock bottom in your marriage or your relationship doesn't mean that you've failed. In fact, recognizing that things need to change is the first step towards healing. And so today in this video, I want to give you some strategies and steps that you can take to rebuild the connection between you and create that marriage that you truly desire. Now, I'm going to break this down into 5 key areas that you're going to use to transform your marriage. Now, I'm going to break this down into 5 key areas that you're going to use to transform your marriage, even though right now it feels like an impossibility. And I know what that feels like. It's almost like you're in the middle of a tunnel and you're trying to look ahead, but you really can't see the light to go forward. That's a lack of hope. And it feels like there's no way backwards. So it's like you're just in this horrible stuck place. But hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to start to see a glimmer of hope. You're going to start to see that light. So first off, let's talk about what it looks like when a marriage is at rock bottom. You may be experiencing things like a complete breakdown of the emotional connection between you. Maybe it feels like you guys are living like flatmates, just passing each other like ships. You might find that there's no romance, there's no intimacy between you guys, and maybe it also feels like you guys are walking on eggshells around you. You'll also be very aware of just this deep sense of lack of trust and growing resentment from both partners towards each other. Now, I want you to know that you're not an anomaly. It's not that this is just you guys. This is very common. Many couples hit this point, especially when they've been in a long-term relationship or marriage. I want you to start to see this point as not being the end of your relationship, but almost like a wake-up call, a calling for you guys to bring your attention and focus to your marriage so that you can take it to that next level. Maybe it's time to shift you out of the mediocre, so that you're forced to create this marriage that you actually desire and not just exist. If you're anything like me, I don't tend to take action until there's a bit of a crisis. And so maybe this crisis is calling you and telling you that it's time to take action. So you're in this position and now it's time for you to hit the reset button. Now, this might come as a bit of a surprise for you, but actually when couples try to go all in and solve all their problems all at once, it tends to backfire. It's overwhelming. There's too much hurt and blame and resentment and bad feeling and disconnection for you guys to be able to do that. So what I want you to do is press the reset button. And that means taking a few steps back. And that's taking a step back from all the blame. That's starting to realize that actually both of us have contributed to where we are right now. That's starting to take small steps to build the connection first. We're not focusing on solving all the problems right now. What small steps can we take to just start to talk again, to be friendly with each other again, to start to remember why we're in this in the first place? Why did we fall in love? Why did we choose to spend our lives together? To start to remember what this all means for both of you, and then start to set some realistic expectations. So let me tell you about Sarah. She was married to her husband, Mike. Obviously, I'm having to use fictitious names, but the story is very true. And they came to me thinking that divorce was inevitable. Remember that tunnel that I said? It feels like you're standing on when you're looking ahead and you cannot see a glimmer of light. You can't see any hope. The only option then for many couples who feel that way is divorce. And that's exactly how they felt. Just 3 months later, they'd completely transformed their marriage. Divorce, what divorce? And this was because they started to take small steps. It wasn't big, massive gestures. It wasn't trips away. It wasn't expensive gifts. It wasn't going straight into romance and intimacy. It was saying, how can we start to make small changes that, first of all, before we solve any problems, start to build a connection so that we can start to feel like we're on the same team again. How can I stop blaming for a moment? How can I stop pointing the finger for a moment? How can I start to take accountability for my own contribution for a moment? How can I start to see things, allow myself to see things from my partner's perspective? It's the small things. It's the small things. And usually it's letting go of the small things that has gotten us to this point. It's taking each other for granted. It's being complacent that has gotten us here. And so what I want you to do is to start to go back to the small things. And there's a key word that we need to remember here, and that word is consistency. How can I consistently be kind, even in this season? It's a small thing. How can I consistently communicate and share my feelings? It's a small thing. How can I consistently listen right now and just hear my partner out in this season? It's a small thing. But as I do that consistently, guess what's going to happen? That connection that is so broken, that makes us feel so far away, is going to start to ease in towards each other. And as that happens, that light at the end of the tunnel is going to start glimmering again. Now, the third element of this is beginning to rekindle the communication. We need that communication to come back. But again, we're not going to force it all on you straight away. We've got to take baby steps, particularly for you couples where the communication is completely broken down. You've barely said boo to each other in weeks, maybe months. You're doing enough communication that you can navigate around the house and look after the children, but really talking about yourselves and what this relationship needs, and what you as individuals need, and building a communication that actually fosters emotional connection. You've definitely not been doing that for a while. Now, how did Sarah and Mike grow to being able to transform their marriage and develop this beautiful communication between them? Again, small baby steps. They started to practice my 2-2-2 rule for communication. And that is where one person gets to speak for 2 minutes. The other person is doing nothing but listening. Now, the listening is not listening to correct and nitpick and find words that was said wrong and figure out how you're going to defend yourself and over explain yourself. That's not what you're listening for. You're listening only to understand, only to get under the skin, only to get a deep insight, right? Only to be able to put yourself in your partner's shoes and see things from their perspective. And then you get 2 minutes to discuss what you guys have spoke, what your partner has said. That's it. And then we're going to leave it for now. We're going to leave it for now, and then we're going to switch on to the other person. And we're going to do that until we've been able to deal with a couple of issues. And we're not going to try and deal with everything all at once on one day. I would say give each person their 2 minutes, be heard, discuss afterwards for 2 minutes, and then we leave it alone for that day because we don't want to overwhelm you. The second thing you're going to do whilst having these conversations is use I feel statements, not you did, you never, you always. We're going to say, I feel like, right? I feel this way. And this really causes you to focus on the feeling rather than the action. When you're focusing on the action, now we're bringing in accusation, we're bringing in blame, we're bringing in attack. What happens when someone feels attacked? Straight away, they go into defense mode. But when you bring them in by saying, this is how I feel, right? It allows them to lean in, empathize with you, and want to support you in that feeling. It's going to help to create a space for vulnerability. And we know that to build emotional connection, vulnerability plays a huge part in that. And when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we're also communicating a sense of trust, like I'm trusting you with these feelings. And if your partner is doing that to you, then it's for you to create that space where it is safe for them to do so, even if you don't understand their perspective. Even if you don't see it from that point of view, allow them to share how they feel and get yourself out of the way. And lastly, to rebuild communication, I just want you to practice checking in daily. How hard would it be for you, even in this season where things are really rocky, to just check in and just see how each other are doing, see how each other's day is going, right? See how each other are feeling. And really think about this. This is the person you gave your life to. This is someone that you entered into a covenant with. And no matter what happened, there's still space for just courtesy and kindness. This is something that you would offer a stranger on the street. So it's not too much to ask that you put your hurts and disappointments to the side enough that you can just check in with your partner. The next stage in you rebuilding this connection, this marriage, even when it feels impossible, is starting to reconnect emotionally. We've got to do that. And I know that this will feel uncomfortable for you, but there's a few things that I want you to, again, get out of your own way and practice doing. Now, when your partner is talking to you, I actually want you to look at them. Let's get some eye contact going on. You'll be amazed at just how powerful it is to actually hold eye contact with your partner, particularly when there's been a disconnection, and just allow them to feel like you're there with them. The other thing that I want you to introduce is physical touch again. Now, I'm not talking about sexual touch. I mean, a resting hand on the lap. I mean, an arm around the shoulder. I mean, the holding hand. I mean, that sort of touch. Again, touch is a very, very powerful tool to begin to rebuild a bond between you. And when we touch for over 6 seconds, the hormone oxytocin, the bonding hormone, is released and it does what it does. It bonds. And my advice is, particularly when you guys are talking again and communicating, when you back that up with touch. So let me talk to you, but I'm going to hold your hand, or I'm going to rest my arm on your elbow, or I'm going to put my hand on your lap so that you feel safe. You know that I'm not here to attack you, but also we're going to get the benefit of this bonding. Right? So start to work that into your relationship to slowly but surely. Remember what I said, we're not talking about the big things here. And these things might seem so insignificant, but I promise you, they are really not. They are powerful tools that have been given to us to build and maintain connection. Now, also, what I want you to do is start to get interested again in your partner. Like, get interested in what they're doing, see their world again, start to appreciate them again. You know, start to look at them with different eyes. You know, you're out of it right now. I want you to start to look in and remind yourself about who this person is and what it was that made you fall in love with them in the first place. And as you begin to open up and talk about things, don't just let your communication be about your problems and what you guys need to do to get better, but also start to share your experiences, share your values, share your dreams. See how you guys can start to create new experiences together. Can you guys go for a walk? Is there a new Netflix program that you guys want to watch together? Can we experience something new together? Go on a small trip together? All these things that's going to help to just build that bond. And then lastly, and I don't know, maybe this should have been first, but I want you to take your gaze off your partner and look at yourself and stop worrying about what they're doing, what they should be doing, what they're getting wrong. And start to look at your own contribution to where we are today. Your personality traits, your relationship habits, the way you communicate, the way you handle conflict, why you take things personally, why things upset you the way it does, and then why you react in the way that you do. And I want you to ask yourself how things would be different if you started to work on some of those things on yourself. I want you to remember that in order to fix your relationship, the first place to start is to fix yourself. Everything that you want to change in your life always starts with yourself, right? And so when you start to take those fingers of blame away from your partner and start to point them at yourself, and start to say, regardless of my partner and how they're showing up, how can I show up in the way that honors the vows and the covenant that I made? How can I show up that is in line with the kind of person that I truly believe that I am or that I want to be? And when you start to do that, you will inevitably start to see shifts in your relationship, shifts in your marriage, and shifts with how your partner interacts with you. So just as a recap, I first of all want you to understand where you are right now, right? Be honest with it, accept it for the truth, but start to see it as a place for you to grow from, not dying, right? This breaking point, see it as a platform for you guys to move up. You can't get any lower. And I want you to consider this journey to be like a reset button. We're not looking for anything big and magical to happen here. We're going to focus in on the small things, take a few steps back, move away from the blame and the accusations and the attacking, and start to just ask ourselves, how can we start to show up with small and consistent changes that are going to make a big, massive impact on our relationship? Communicate with each other, give each other space to speak. We're going to focus on really listening and discussing what our partner has brought up. We're going to be using I statements so that we're going to avoid blaming and pointing the finger, but just allowing for vulnerability and openness. And that leads me on to the next part of reconnecting emotionally. Eye contact, touch, sharing our hearts together, rediscovering each other, seeing our partner with new eyes. And then lastly, taking ownership for the role that we played and focusing on how we can be the spouse that we want to be, right? Regardless of what our partner does and the choices that they made. Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in this relationship? Knowing that change always starts with you. Now, before I wrap up, I want to speak directly to the couples who are really in this position. You're really struggling right now. I want you to remember that marriage isn't about creating the perfect couple. And the perfect couple doesn't create the perfect marriage. There isn't such a thing. But what this is about is having the courage to do what is necessary to change. It's about that courage to take the steps to create the marriage that you want to have. That's the perfect marriage. And also remember that reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of commitment to wanting this marriage to be a thriving, happy, wholesome place, for wanting change. And so if you're in that position right now, I want you to take the first steps to getting onto my 8-week marriage transformation program. And that first step is to simply, you hit the link in the description and book a 30-minute free consultation call with me. I'd be happy to connect with you and show you how you can absolutely turn this situation around. Absolutely you can. If this video resonated with you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and comment below. Let me know where you are on your marriage journey. Maybe you're in a position of healing right now. Maybe you do feel like you're at rock bottom, or maybe you've been through this and you're flying the flag and saying, hey, you can do it, you can make it. Share it in the comments, let me know. Thank you for watching, and remember, as long as you guys are willing to try, there's always hope. There's always hope.